Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 4. Text number 39. Shadava labhate jnanam tatpara samatandriyaha jnanam ladva param shantim acharena nigacchati. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and is reduced to senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. Purport: such knowledge of Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. One is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness he can attain the highest perfection. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. Over and above this, one should control the senses. A person who is faithful to Krishna, who controls the senses, can easily attain perfection in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness without delay. Among Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasad Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Dhanamade Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Astadyade Sakarane. As I mentioned before, faith, Prabhupada explains, is the most important aspect of our advancing in Krishna consciousness. Now, faith also means faith in the knowledge of the scripture. What Krishna says in the scripture is also necessary to have faith in. But faith is not supposed to be blind faith. Faith is based upon experience. And according to how much experience we have in Krishna consciousness, to that extent we have faith. In the beginning of in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada mentions that one lady had asked him to recommend an edition of the Bhagavad Gita. In English at that time there were 600 or 700 different versions of the Bhagavad Gita in English. But Prabhupada told the lady he could not recommend any particular Bhagavad Gita because none of them that he knew of touch the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita. So the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains, is just like if one wants to take a medicine, one should take the medicine under the direction of the physician or according to the label on the bottle. One should not take the medicine whimsically. So the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita is that Krishna explains that He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And indeed, authorities such as Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Sankaracharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and others, they also agree that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now also in the Brahma Samhita and the Puranas, such as the Srimad Bhagavatam, also declare that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is said in the scriptures that every one of us have an eternal relation with Krishna in one of 5 different rasas, either neutrality, or servitorship, or friendship, or being a parent of Krishna, or even a conjugal lover. But to receive that knowledge, we have to receive it through the line of reciprocal succession. In other words, if Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everything he speaks, then if one is going to receive that knowledge, he has to receive it from a person who is just repeating what Krishna says. So Prabhupada used to say that it's not hard to become a guru. One simply has to repeat what the previous gurus have said. After all, if Krishna is God, then we can't actually add anything or take anything away to make it better. Anything we do by adding or subtracting from what Krishna says is actually going to make it worse. It's going to negate what Krishna is saying. So one has to receive that knowledge in the line of the succession coming from Krishna himself, and one has to accept it, theoretically at least, that it's a fact that Krishna might be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, we should neither blindly accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or blindly reject that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At least we have to accept it theoretically, and with that submissive mood, we can actually make advances in Krishna consciousness. In other words, as I've said before, all of us have to acknowledge that under the spell of visual energy, we're in illusion. That illusion is we're misidentifying ourselves with this gross subtle body. And under illusion, no one can have clear vision of anything. Therefore, when people don't have a clear vision, they generally put on glasses in order to see things properly. So, with that lack of vision, we have to put on the vision of the Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Chakshush, or as Krishna says, Ukramantam siddhim vapi bhunjana vaganandita vimudo nanapashanti pashanti jnana chakshusha. The foolish cannot understand how the living entity quits his body or what kind of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But those whose eyes are trained with knowledge can see all that clearly. In other words, first of all, we have to understand that we're an illusion. Krishna therefore speaks in Bhagavad Gita, Deno Srinita Dehe Komaram Yovanam Jara Katadahantara Prapir Viryas Tatran Muyati. He says the obvious, that our bodies are changing from boyhood to youth, old age, but we ourselves, the soul, we're actually not changing. In spite of all the changes that the body goes through, we as the soul have not gone through any change. Now a person who's sober, he can see all that clearly. Krishna consciousness is the process of becoming sober, or waking up from our delusion of thinking ourselves to be apart from Krishna, or what to speak of thinking ourselves to be Krishna, or thinking ourselves to be a product of the material energy. It is all delusion. And if we recognize that delusion, just like if one is in darkness, then one needs some light, some flashlight to see where one is going. Simply being in darkness, we need the light of knowledge to see where we're going. Therefore, Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita and explains to us how to get out of the darkness of ignorance so we can actually understand who we are and what our aim of life is. So Bhagavad Gita means we put on the glasses of knowledge, although we may not see perfectly, we may only understand theoretically, but if we apply that knowledge with faith in our lives, therefore gradually we'll become aware of things as they actually are. And here Prabhupada says it's very simple. Just like there are 13 There are 18 processes of knowledge in the 13th chapter. And one of the processes of knowledge is that one is Asakta anabishvanga putradara vihadishu. Detachment from wife, home, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest. So Prabhupada explains in the purport for that is that it is not that in family life one should not have any affection for one's family, but actually family life should mean that one sits down with the family in the morning and the evening and chants Hare Krishna together. Hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, worship the deities. Now that's what is advised for all of us. For instance, Prabhupada, from the very beginning of the movement, he established a program in the morning that we get up as early as possible, we chant Hare Krishna together, we worship the deities, we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and we serve the devotees. These are 5 powerful processes that, if one applies with concentration, one can experience Bhava even in the neophyte stage. In other words, Krishna consciousness is not supposed to be overly complicated. It's a very simple process. But it takes some faith that I should follow this process, this simple process of getting up and with my family if possible, chant Hare Krishna, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, worship the deities, serve the devotees, and try to make our home atmosphere spiritual. Family life, or any life in this world, is not going to be perfectly happy. This is a world of suffering. At the same time, one should not abandon household life as long as it's conducive for self-realization. So that's called faithful. If we actually believe that this process, this powerful process of chanting Hare Krishna, worshiping the deities, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, serving the devotees, and making the atmosphere spiritual, will help us advance in spiritual life, then we have to apply it in our lives. It's nice to come to the temple on Sunday or whenever, but actually even more important than that is to have a regular program in our houses of worshiping, of devotional practices. If one lives in the temple, of course, it is easier because there's a temple there, and that's what the program of the temple is. But even if one doesn't live in the temple, one should make one's home a temple by following those 5 powerful processes of chanting Hare Krishna, worshiping the deities, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, serving the devotees, and making the atmosphere spiritual. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advised us, or asked us, he said, Yari Deka Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Agad Bruhana Taridesh. That whoever we meet, we should try to help them become Krishna conscious. In that way, we become guru and we help deliver others. There is nothing more we have to do. In other words, we don't have to save the whole world. First of all, we should try to save ourselves. The Prabhupada mentions that there are many nice organizations, the Red Cross, philanthropical organizations, to help people. But all they can do is help the body or the mind. But even more important than all these different organizations, even more important than saving others, is first of all to save ourselves. That's the one person we have responsibility for. In spite of all the troubles of the material world, if we engage ourselves and try to engage others, especially our family members at the beginning, in the process of devotional service, then we're doing the best service we can to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement and to ourselves. One time, in 1968, Srila Prabhupada was leaving the West Coast to go to India. He was giving initiations. One man stood up and said, Swamiji, he said, what have you done to the world? What has this movement done to the world? So Srila Prabhupada asked him, he said, have you practiced Krishna consciousness? And the man said, yes, I've practiced Krishna consciousness. And has it helped you? He said, yes, it's helped me. So Prabhupada said, that's what I'm doing for the world. In other words, everyone has their free will. Everyone can do what they want. Practically the whole world has no idea what they're supposed to do. I mean, they have an idea because everyone follows someone. Everyone follows an authority. Everyone has some hero, real or fictitious, that they're trying to follow. And therefore, everyone is going somewhere. If we, as Prabhupada told Professor Putaski, if you follow, he was Professor Putaski at the University of Moscow, he was a communist. He could not accept the philosophy of reincarnation. He could not accept the philosophy of karma. He could not accept even varnashram dharma, that there should be first-class men. People should be trained to be clean and truthful and religious. He could not understand any of that. So Prabhupada finally understood that this man could not understand our philosophy. So he said that actually there's no difference between our philosophy and your philosophy. Because your philosophy is you're going to follow Lenin. And our philosophy is that we're going to follow Krishna. Therefore, you have to choose someone and follow them. Now, if you follow Lenin, you're going to go where Lenin goes. And if you follow Krishna, then you're going to go where Krishna goes. If you're trying to find Narada Muni, then follow his footsteps and eventually you'll get to him. So everyone is following some or someone's or a number of people's footsteps, and that's where they're going to arrive eventually. As Krishna says, Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhavam, Syajat Jat Kalevram, Tam Tam Evaiti Konteya, Sada Sadbhava Bhavitaha. That whatever one thinks of at the time of death, he's sure to attain to that position without fail. Because before that he says, Antikales Brahma, Antikales Mambhava, Syajat Kalevram, Tam Tam Evaiti Konteya, Sada Tadbhava Bhavitaha. That anyone who thinks of me at the time of death, then he's sure to attain to me without fail. And whoever at the end of life puts his body remembering me alone, once attains my nature, of this there is no doubt. Antikale Tumameva, Smran Bhavam, Smran Mukva Kalevram. Yatriyati Samadbhavam, Yatinasyatra Samashaya. In other words, if we follow Krishna and fix our minds upon Krishna, then we'll go back to Krishna. And if we do something else, then we'll go somewhere else. And in order to facilitate that, to help us fix our mind upon Krishna, we have these programs in the morning and the evening. Otherwise, what in what way are we actually going to be able to fix our minds upon Krishna unless we practice regularly, every day? Srinvatam Swapita Krishna, Punya Shravanam Kirtana, Vridyantapsto Hibrajani, Vidunoti Sarisadam. Devotional service is supposed to be practiced daily, not once a week, or only for festivals, which is good. But actually, if we want to get the result that we're looking for, to become conscious of Krishna, to be qualified to meet Krishna face to face, we have to regularly practice Krishna consciousness. It's not a part-time occupation. It's ultimately an occupation 24 hours a day. Just as we ourselves are souls, and it's not that only for certain parts of the day we're spiritual, and for the rest of the day we're something else. It's not that when we come to the temple, we put on our halo, and we sprout little wings on our back. And then when we go home, little horns come up. And we try to, and our tail comes out. We close our altar so Krishna doesn't see. And then we live in what's called a normal life, like everyone else. That suddenly we transform from a spiritual soul to a material body and mind. That is not very desirable. We're always spiritual beings, and we always need spiritual energy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compares it to watering the root of a tree. If you water the root of the tree, then the water will go to all the leaves and branches. But without doing that, then the tree will dry up. Therefore, if we actually have faith in the words of the Bhagavad Gita, if we have faith in the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, then we'll apply this in our lives daily. The problem comes when we believe that actually this is an exaggeration, or there's no real need for me to practice so diligently that when I get old and I can't do anything, then I'll actually become Krishna conscious. I'll make a real endeavor. One devotee was telling me his father was 90 years old and he had a triple bypass surgery, heart surgery. So after the operation, his son went to his father and said to his father, my dear father, now you're 90 years old and maybe you should take up Krishna consciousness seriously. But his father said, no, I said, I just had the operation, now I'm all right. I don't have to worry about this. But an intelligent person realizes that although I am an eternal spirit soul, although I have the opportunity to live a life of bliss and knowledge, if I don't take advantage of it, then there's every possibility that after leaving this body, I may wind up in some other species of life. Bharat Maharaj was a serious devotee. He retired from being the emperor of the entire world. He retired into the forest and was constantly and systematically cultivating Krishna consciousness. But he became enamored with a deer cub, and eventually in his next life became a deer. Unfortunately, most people have no idea that what they're practicing now, what they're developing affection and love for, that will determine where they're going in the next lifetime. And if we're not constantly developing our Krishna consciousness, then we'll be, as soon as we stop developing our Krishna consciousness, immediately we start developing another consciousness. And as soon as we develop another consciousness, both consciousness may come together and bring us into another human form of life. But then we're starting all over again. If we have to take another birth, we won't take it with our PhD degree. It's not that when I arrive into my next womb, in my womb I have a little PhD degree with me. And when I take birth, I just show it to my mom, and she said, okay, no worries. You're ready. She's a professional. We don't have to send you to school. No, we arrive again and again. We have to learn, even if we were a professor at a university teaching mathematics, then again we have to go and learn 1 + 1 = 2, all over again. And there's no guarantee that we're going to become a PhD again. There's no guarantee that whatever we accomplished in our last lifetime, we're going to be able to take with us into this lifetime. We have to start all over again. And on the other hand, if we become attracted, not just to a deer cub, but just like, for instance, people are attracted to swimming. So they spend their energy swimming back and forth in a pool all day long, trying to become an Olympic swimmer. So then they win the Olympics to make it a gold medal. But by their endeavor, what will they accomplish? Perhaps in the next lifetime they'll become a fish. And instead of having little pools to swim back and forth in, you get the whole ocean. But you won't have your gold medal to show to the other fish, nor will they be very impressed that I swim like a fish, because all the other fish swim like fish too. This little practice of chanting Hare Krishna in the morning and the evening with our family can save us, as Krishna says, Neha vikramanashosti pratyavayona vidyate swalpamakya siddharmasya trayate mahatobhaya. That in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution, and even a little advancement can protect us from the greatest danger. It may be very simple, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very merciful. And at the same time, we should not neglect trying to give Krishna consciousness to others. If we think that this is my wife, or if I think this is my husband, if I think that these are my children, or this is my dog, or this is my house, and we don't remember that actually we're only visitors here, and none of these things actually belong to us. Everything here actually belongs to Krishna. Everyone here is actually Krishna's eternal servant. It is actually not my wife. It is not actually my children. These things have been given to me to be utilized in Krishna's service. And if we forget that, then at once we're an illusion, and an illusion, then we put ourselves in a very difficult position. That an illusion, any relationship we have, although we may try as hard as we can to make it satisfying, but because it's done under illusion, it's not spiritual. It bears no eternal benefit, either for ourselves or others. Just like there may be a very powerful king, he may be ruling his society very nicely, like Duryodhana was a king, and he was ruling the whole world at that time very nicely. But because he wasn't Krishna conscious, whatever he was doing was neither good for himself or good for anyone else. Brahma Harshan was sitting on a Vyasasana and instructing thousands of sages in transcendental knowledge. They were performing a sacrifice for the benefit of the universe for 1,000 years. He was a student of Vyasadeva. He was a very learned scholar. But when Lord Balaram entered into the ceremony, the sacrifice, Brahmaharshan sat on the Vyasasan and paid no respect to Lord Balaram. As a result of that, Balaram took a kusha grass and killed him with it. Now one may wonder why Balaram would kill a very learned scholar. Because he was misleading all those sages. He did not respect the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His teachings was not actually devotional. And therefore he was not benefiting himself, nor was he benefiting the sages. That one has to have the conviction that without Krishna consciousness, everything is a waste of time. Shrama evahi kevalam. And if one has a big position like Ramaharshan had, or Duryodhana, or even Ravana, or other such personalities, heading society, Gururna sasyat, Pitana sasyat, Swajnona sasyat, Swajanina sasyat, emotion tom yaksu pekyu mityum. That one may have any position, a father, a mother, a relative, a worshipful deity, a guru, anyone, any position. But that position has to be utilized to save people from birth, their dependence from birth and death. Otherwise, it's a misuse of the position. So we should not take anything that we're doing lightly. We should remember what the goal of life is. And whatever service we have, whatever obligations we have, we should not forget our obligation towards Krishna. Devotional life begins when we give up our false ego. And our false ego means that we're misidentifying ourselves as proprietors of this world. We're misidentifying ourselves with all these upadhis. Kritirna yavanvaya vasudeve. That is, as long as we think upadiyamanas, as long as we misidentify ourselves with this gross and subtle body, and have these upadhis, thinking ourselves men and women. Of course, we're in a man's body and we have a woman's body, and therefore we have different duties to perform, but we're not this body. We're actually spiritual beings. We're actually eternal servants of Krishna, every one of us. And in our relations to others, we should not forget that they're also eternal servants of Krishna, no matter what their relationship with us may be. And that we have an obligation to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by helping them become Krishna conscious to the greatest extent that we can. And if we do that with enthusiasm, then Tadani Buddhi Yogam Tam. Then Krishna will give us the intelligence how to do it. We may not have the intelligence now how to do it, but if we hear from the right source, with the right attitude, and we try to apply it within our lives. And what does our life mean? We have so many relationships. It is not that anything is outside of Krishna consciousness, including our household life. It is all part of Krishna's energy. It is all within Krishna's energy. And whatever we're doing, whoever we're meeting, whether it's our husband, wife, children, friends, or even a stranger in the street, that we have some obligation to help them become Krishna conscious. If we do that, then we'll get out of the illusory energy. No matter how difficult it may seem, but if we do that, then Krishna will give us the intelligence how to make progress towards the ultimate goal of life. And if we neglect that, and imagine that there's two lives, There's my life, devotional life in the temple, and then there's my ordinary, normal life, like everyone else. And in that life, then I become a material body or a material mind, and I have material relationships with so many people. Then that will not help us advance towards the goal of life. That puts us into the danger of having to take birth again. And even if we take birth as devotees, or we go to the heavenly planets, just imagine, by performing devotional service, that in your next lifetime, you wind up in Indira Loka for 10,000 years. And you come back to this earth planet just after 10,000 years, after the Golden Age. And the people who greet you are not a Harinam party, because there are no more Harinam parties. There's little people, hungry people. There's little hungry people to greet you. And they tell you, welcome to the feast. And you're on the menu. So, we got the benefit of performing devotional service. We went to the heavenly planets, we enjoyed for 10,000 years in Indra Loka, and we came back here at the wrong time. So what will actually be accomplished? Unless we become Tibrena, Bhakti Yogena, Yajayita, Purusha, Para. Unless we actually realize the seriousness of what we're doing, and with some fixity, a purpose, with some regularity, with some regulations, we perform devotional service in such a way, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur said in his song, that when I entered into my house, then I was not entering into a house, I was entering into Vaikuntha. When I was taking Charanamrita, I was actually seeing the river Ganges. Shuddha Bhakti Charitarena. So that's our goal. Is to spiritualize our lives, spiritualize our families, spiritualize the society. Then we can actually change ourselves, and when we can change ourselves, then we'll be empowered to help change others too. We can't change anyone else unless we change ourselves first. We can't ignite a fire if we ourselves, we can ignite a fire if we ourselves are fiery. If we ourselves in the fire of Krishna consciousness, then we can actually benefit our family. We're not going to benefit our children by making them doctors or lawyers or whatever else. That may be there, but unless they're Krishna conscious, then we bear the responsibility of misdirecting them. And therefore, every time we look at our children, we won't remember Krishna, we'll remember a lawyer or a banker or whatever else. And instead of our children bringing us back to Vaikuntha, we brought them down to the lowest regions of existence. Although they may be respected in society, but they're not going to be respected in Vaikuntha. When Srila Prabhupada was, after he graduated from Scottish Churches College, his relatives wanted to send him to England to make him a banister. His father was a merchant. He sold cloth. Normally one would think in India that my son is going to become a popular or a wealthy lawyer, a banister in England. What a great opportunity, of course. Let me send him there. But Srila Prabhupada's father was different. He was a pure devotee of Krishna. So he said, I'm not sending my son to England to become a molester. From the beginning of his life, his father emphasized worship of Radha Krishna. And even gave Srila Prabhupada and his sister, Bhishma, deities to worship. And when they go to offer their food, they offer their food to these deities. In this way, Prabhupada became a Vaikuntha man. So we want to benefit our children. We may educate them in so many different ways. But unless we give them Krishna consciousness from the beginning of life, unless we show them an example ourselves of how to worship Krishna, then we won't be actually giving them the best opportunity to make their lives successful. Unless we're convinced that the goal of life is ultimately to become a pure, humble servant of Krishna, no matter what our position. King Prahlādānanda was the emperor of a vast tract of land in India, but he made his goal of life to become Krishna conscious. There are many kings' examples who were very wealthy and famous, but they dedicated their lives at the same time to becoming Krishna conscious, like Ambarish Maharaj. So there's no impediment for becoming rich or famous or anything else, but at the same time one should cultivate a sense of Krishna consciousness and give that to our family also, or else what we're doing is not really helping them and will not ultimately help ourselves either. We may get some temporary benefit, but we certainly won't get the ultimate goal of life. We won't get free from the miseries of life, nor will we get the highest perfection of happiness, eternal life in Vaikuntha with Krishna. Instead, we'll spend another human form of life trying to become something that we're not, and at the end become disappointed because it'll all be taken away, only to start another life of perhaps devotion, but when it's mixed with delusion, it's actually not so tasteful. If we take sweet rice, pure sweet rice, it tastes very nice, but if we mix it with sand, it does not become very tasteful. So we may have the sweet rice in devotional service, but we have to regularly practice it at home, hopefully morning and evening, so that it becomes pure sweet rice, not sweet rice mixed with sand. Sweet rice, devotional service mixed with materialistic activities and aspirations. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? This is usually the moment of silence in the temple.
Hello, Maharaj. I've been listening to you from behind.
Okay.
So how would you advise me and others here how we can chant in our homes with our families and do worship to Krishna? That was part of your conversation.
Yes, but I didn't know it was so complicated. Anyhow, find a floor. And everyone has a floor in the house. You can sit down on the floor, or you can stand on it. Either you can clap your hands. Everyone clap your hands. Yes, we're all equipped with the instrument. And we go, let's repeat together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. See? What it felt hard. So we'll just do that. Okay, yes.
Maharaj, so it's my question every single day. Like I'm trying to do my japa, and would be great to hear your insight on how to improve the quality of our japa, daily japa.
Read Prabhupada's books, worship the deities, serve the devotees, and try to become serious about giving Krishna consciousness to others. That way we'll believe that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we'll actually chant to Krishna, like Krishna Srimati Radharani, actually asking them to engage us in their loving service. It won't be some impersonal chant, unmindful of the names, thinking that the name is different from Krishna. It'll actually become a dialogue with Krishna. Then Krishna will reciprocate with us, because we're actually in a relationship with him. Then japa will become meaningful and productive. Yes, another question? Anyone else have a question? Yes.
Maharaj,
She has a question.
How do we focus at home when half of the family is part devotees and the other half is not, and it goes in both directions?
Get rid of the other half. At least within your mind. In other words, and half devotees, half the family members are devotees and half aren't. You know, we respect everyone in the family. We wish them well. We help them out according to our obligations and duties. But at the same time, you know, they should respect the fact that we should have our space also for our devotional activities. And if they do that, then we should respect their ambitions and their activities. And they should respect ours also. That way we can live happily together. We mutual respect. Yes?
Maharaj, your conversation was 10,000 years. Can you explain what after will be 10,000 years?
After 10,000 years? Well, according to the Bhagavatam, after 10,000 years, people will become shorter and shorter and shorter until they become like pygmies. And there won't be any fruits or vegetables, there won't be any grains left. The only food will be left is meat. And the only meat left will be human beings. So at the end of Kali Yuga, then people will be, their only food and substance will be eating each other before Kalki comes. So it won't be very pleasant. There won't be any, if there's a Sunday feast, it won't be awful. All right. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai.